I wanted to ask you what your overriding feeling is at this moment in time, and the fact that you've once again qualified for the Champions League with Atalanta is the best possible preparation for this match. Yes, absolutely. Having mathematically secured Champions League football on Sunday is a further step which allows us to be fully focused on this cup final. So that was, without a doubt, very positive. I've got a lot of anticipation at this moment in time. We've prepared absolutely everything that we needed to prepare, and now we're waiting to play the match and go toe-to-toe with our opponents. So we need to do a good job over the next 24 hours or so to make sure that we are in a relaxed enough frame of mind, because we need to really believe that we've done what we needed to, and we need to wait for the match itself. Good evening. Gianluca Scamacca is available for selection again, and we've seen just how important he is for you because of his absence in the Coppa Italia final against Juventus. Besides the fact that Bayer Leverkusen don't set up in the same way as Juventus, how significant could it be that you have Scamacca available for selection, and based on the performance levels of Charles de Ketelaere, who seems transformed when he plays alongside Scamacca? Over the last few months, Gianluca Scamacca has come on leaps and bounds, not only in terms of goals, but also in terms of his performance levels in general. The fact that he didn't play against Juventus, I said during the week, above all in that sort of match, in other fixtures perhaps we would have felt his absence less keenly, but in a game like that it would have been crucial to have him because we don't have a similar profile in terms of a centre forward like him. Of course, everyone is available for selection: Lookman, De Ketelaere, El Bilal Touré, Miranchuk, so we've got everyone available in the final third. And we can also consider the 90 minutes, or perhaps even if it goes longer, into extra time. Good evening. I'm over here, Gian Piero. You said we believe that we've prepared absolutely everything we needed to. I wanted to ask you something more than that. Besides the fact that Martin de Roon is missing, do you think you come into this game at the peak of your powers, in your best possible shape to play a final like this? Mentally and physically, yes. And the fact that we qualified for the Champions League, even more so. Personally, I'm disappointed that Martin won't be involved, first and foremost because of what a player he is on the pitch, but above all, because he's a guy who deserved to be involved in a final. He's given so much to Atalanta. It's a real shame that he has to miss out on the most important match, the European final. But at this moment in time, it's not easy when you play 3 games a week for several months, as we have, to always produce your best football, because we really have played so many matches and we've played a number of very positive games. We are ruining the Coppa Italia final against Juventus, where we went into the game for various reasons, not necessarily at our best performance levels. But it's also true that this is another game, another cup final. It's a new match, if you will, with a very prestigious trophy on the line. So we have no excuses on that score. Good evening. How do you take on a team that's unbeaten for 51 matches? And I wanted to ask you what you've made of the Bergamaschi's efforts to make it to Dublin. Yes, we really have asked huge sacrifices from them, from every perspective, in terms of time, money, to really travel and support us in so many matches, constantly travelling all over Europe, and their presence has never been found wanting. There'll be plenty of them again tomorrow night, and it's not necessarily easy to get to Dublin from Bergamo, but we hope to give them something to smile about. How do you take on a team like Bayer Leverkusen? We need to be conscious of the fact that we're up against a top side. The statistics speak for themselves when it comes to their league matches. The results they've got in the Bundesliga are there for all to see. But both in Italy and in Europe, we've come up against a number of very strong sides. And so we need to make sure that we have a lot of self-confidence and self-belief as well. We have acquired that.
Television. I think you already said something about Martin de Roon, maybe just in the press conference, but he's here, he's injured, but he says, I want to cheer for the team and I'm going to give my best for the team. How important is it for you to have that kind of a player still with you?
I won't deny that I would have much rather have had him on the pitch, but given that he can't be involved in the match, I'm delighted that he can be here. But there was no doubts about that. He'll be in the dressing room over the next few hours in the lead up to the match, during the match itself. He's always been an exemplary captain for us in terms of his behaviour and in terms of his quality on the pitch. So as I said earlier, we are gutted for Martin, the fact that he has to miss out on this match, but he will convey his energy above all to his teammates. Other side, Gaffer, good evening. Watching back some of the Bayer Leverkusen matches, have you enjoyed watching them? Have you enjoyed watching them play? And could this Europa League final be defined not necessarily a final of the players, but a final of two teams that play very original football, innovative football that have brought them this far? Bayer Leverkusen are a very organised side, as well as having top players, but they really are a team first and foremost. And they have a number of different options and solutions, not only in the final third, but also in terms of their shape, in terms of how certain players break forward as well. They're a versatile side. They defend very well, and they counter very well. They're a team that really are worthy holders of the results and records that they've achieved. We need to be very precise, switched on. We need to make sure that we're also spot on in terms of our shape and organisation. And as ever, when it comes down to finals, you need to make sure that you come out on top in the big moments. Good evening. You were talking about Bayer Leverkusen and their numbers, but also about your growing self-belief that you've acquired not only this season, but above all against Liverpool. The way that Bayer Leverkusen play, might you be slightly intimidated ahead of the final, or are you motivated by the fact that you could be the first team to defeat them this season? We need to have a great deal of respect for them and also be as aware as possible about the opposition, because when you come up against Italian sides, you play them on a regular basis, whereas against foreign teams, you play them a lot less. We played Bayer Leverkusen 2 or 3 years ago, and whilst they have maintained a number of members of the same playing staff, they're still a very different team now. We're not used to coming up against them. When you play 2 matches against them, the first and second leg, then maybe you're able to get a better grip of what's going on. But in a one-off game, a final, you need to make sure that you're prepared from the first whistle to adapt to the opposition, to understand how you can counteract them or how you can actually take the game to them. Is this your proudest moment, not only the fact that you've taken Bergamo into a European final, but also the spirit of Bergamo, that your team really is a living, breathing example of, perhaps even more than previous years, in terms of selflessness, desire, and focus and commitment. In the past you had that, but not to the same extent. You've really peaked on that score this season, haven't you? Perhaps with a different skill set. But those elements have always been part and parcel of what we've done as a team over the last few years. Maybe the players' attributes have been different, but there's always been players who've identified with the club, the fans too, and the club really conveys those values first and foremost. I think we've all made it thus far. We have made progress. And it's also rather unexpected as well. The first time when we qualified for the Champions League, it felt like we had to have a huge overhaul in terms of personnel, and we would have to really dig deep. And yet, we were back in Europe. Next season, Atalanta will be in the Champions League once more. I think it's a whole array of various different elements in terms of the club, the team, the players, the staff, everyone that has allowed us to achieve these results. Of course, we're proud of it. But we're also aware of the fact that, well, at least me personally, I think we can always do a bit more.
Gasperini from the Associated Press. A question about loyalty and timing. In Leverkusen, Xabi Alonso won even more admirers for staying next year, helping create a bigger project. We've seen at Liverpool, after 8 years, Jurgen Klopp felt it was time to move on, but he left on his own terms, more loved and respected there than ever. You've been part of creating a great project at Atalanta. How important to you is loyalty to a project, being part of something bigger? And any thoughts, is there ever such a thing as a good time to leave?
Al momento propicio.
We don't have a crystal ball, so you never know when the right time is. But you say the right time is when you win, and then your performance levels never drop off, and people still rate you. But we're never thinking about when to leave. We're living in the here and now, as opposed to the future or the past. What Xabi Alonso has done is wonderful, because with the performances this season, of course, he had an opportunity to go to a number of big clubs. But he thought the club believed in me when I wasn't necessarily that highly rated, and it's a great example of football. Final question. Good evening. I wanted to ask you, Atalanta finished second behind Inter in the second half of the Serie A season in terms of points tally. You've also made it through to 2 cup finals. The more matches you play, the better you play, and in Serie A, it's actually helped to train you up for Europe, given how many Italian sides are involved in the latter stages of European competitions. Yes, Serie A has made progress. It's developed with a number of teams both last year and this season in the finals of European competition. We have increased in terms of our ranking. There are now several teams in Europe that can represent Serie A. That's a very positive sign for Italy, and we hope that that will also be the case for Italy, the national team, and it can allow the Azzurri to become competitive again, given that Euro 2024 is on the horizon. But playing a number of matches has undoubtedly helped us. We have trained less on the training ground. We've played a lot more in terms of organisation. We've worked on tactics a lot more. We've been able to tweak things a great deal and notice a number of situations. So that's been very positive. We've also been slightly fortunate, if you will, in that we've had very few injuries, and that has undoubtedly helped us as well. Even though the season itself has been very taxing, we can now say so. fixture list with so many matches piling up, with so many games in the midst of all of it, we either need to get used to this, or otherwise we need to come up with a game plan. At least for us at Atalanta, it's been very demanding indeed.